The sound of the valley is the sound of a million mouths chewing. It is a constant grinding, wet rustle that has become the soundtrack to their starvation. It is the sound of the great herd of Edmontosaurus, a grey-green river of flesh 2 miles long and a half-mile wide, that has descended from the north with the changing season. They are not predators. They are worse. They are a slow-motion plague, a relentless tide of appetite that strips the land bare, leaving behind only mud, splinter, and the crushing despair of an empty world. Their massive, duck-billed heads, lined with batteries of grinding teeth, move in a ceaseless rhythm, devouring every leaf, every stem, every last edible scrap. Mara carries Leah's body. The child is too light. She feels like a small, hollowed-out bird in her mother's arms. Leah is the third child to be lost in as many weeks, her small flame snuffed out not by a predator's claw, but by the gnawing emptiness in her own belly. The clan follows Mara to the loud, him-ravaged valley, a procession of gaunt effigies of grief. They are 30 people, a tiny, flickering island of humanity in an ocean of saurian hunger. Their world is being eaten alive before their eyes, and they are helpless to stop it. The burial is a sacred, painful ritual. They wrap the child's body in the softest hide they own, a final, useless act of warmth against the coming cold. By tradition, the dead are not sent into the spirit world empty-handed. They must carry with them the seeds of their life, a token of the harvests they will find in the long dark. The clan's shaman, an old woman named Alara, brings forth the offering, a small leather pouch. Inside is the last of their wild grain, a handful of seeds that represents the final hope of their own survival. An elder named Kale, his face a mask of pragmatic despair, steps forward. Alara, Mara, this is madness. His voice is a dry rasp. This is our seed corn, our last. We feed the dead while the living starve. It is a hard choice, a question that pits the demands of the soul against the screaming needs of the body. Mara looks down at her daughter's face, peaceful now in a way it has not been for months. She looks at Kale, her eyes hollow but burning with a fierce, unwavering light. She did not starve in life, Mara says, her voice cracking but firm. We gave her every last bite we could spare. She will not starve in the long dark either. She takes the pouch from Alara, opens it, and pours the precious grains into the folds of Leah's burial wrap, tucking them close to the child's silent heart. It is an act of profound love, an act of faith so absolute it borders on insanity. They place the small body in the shallow grave and cover it with stones, building a small cairn to protect it from scavengers. As they turn to leave to return, that is now one life emptier and one hope poorer, the ceaseless, grinding sound of the great herd chewing rises from the valley below. They are planting their last hope in a grave, while the world that is their garden is being devoured to the root. The seasons turn. The great herd of Edmontosaurus moves on, a destructive tide receding, leaving behind a scarred and broken landscape. They are gone, but so is everything else. The valley is a wasteland of stripped branches and churned mud. The clan survives on scraps, grubs dug from rotting wood, tough roots boiled for hours to leach out their poisons, the occasional unlucky rodent. They are ghosts haunting a dead world, their numbers dwindling further. Is a bitter stone in the bellies of many. Mara is drawn back to the hill. Grief is a current, and it pulls her to the small cairn of stones that marks her daughter's grave. She does not go with hope, or with any expectation. She goes because it is the only place left in the world that feels like it still holds a piece of her daughter. It is a pilgrimage of sorrow. As she climbs the final rise, she stops, her breath catching in her throat. The land around her is a uniform palette of brown and grey, the skeletal remains of a ravaged ecosystem. But the grave is an island of impossible vibrant green. She approaches slowly, a primal fear mixing with a disbelieving awe. From the earth around and between the stones of the cairn, a thick, healthy patch of wild grain has sprouted. It stands tall and golden in the pale sunlight, the heads heavy with seed. It is a miracle, a wound on the face of the dead world that is bleeding life. She touches a stalk, her fingers trembling. It is real. The wind whispers through the grain, a sound she thought she would never hear again. It is the life she gave away. It is the handful of seeds she poured into her daughter's shroud. Mara does not weep. Her grief is too deep to dry for tears. She works with a reverent intensity, her hands moving with care as she harvests the impossible crop. It is a small bounty, enough for only a few meals, but it feels heavier than any mammoth. She carries it back to the clan, not as food, but as evidence. She walks into the center of the camp and lays the stalks of grain on a clean hide for all to see. The reaction is not joy, it is fear. Kale, the pragmatist, backs away as if from a venomous snake. It is grave food, he hisses, the words are warred against evil. It grew from the flesh of a corpse. It is a thing of spirits, a poison to the living. He voices the deep, instinctual terror of the uncanny, the unnatural. But Eleonora the shaman sees something else. She picks up a single stalk, holding it up to the light, her old eyes seeing a pattern that the others miss. The body returns to the earth, she says, her voice a low chant. The spirit flies to the sky, but the offering we gave her has been returned. She turns to the clan, her gaze sweeping over their hungry, fearful faces. Lear is not poisoning us. She is feeding us. She pulls a single seed from the stalk and holds it in her palm. The earth is a belly, she explains, her words painting a picture of a process she feels but cannot fully name. We put the life seed in the belly of the earth, just as we put it in Lear's hands. We covered it with a blanket of stone. The sun warmed it. The rain gave it drink. And the life within woke up. She is giving them the concept of germination, wrapped in the only language they have, the language of spirits, of life, and of death. This is the intellectual leap that changes everything. The moment that a tribe of hunter-gatherer Homo sapiens begins to comprehend a power greater than the spear. They are seeing, for the first time, not just the world as it is, but the world as it could be made to be. Elara's words hang in the air, a terrifying, unbeautiful new idea. It is a belief that redefines the world. The earth is not just a place to walk upon, it is a womb. Death is not an ending, it is a partner in a sacred cycle. But a belief is not food. The grain from Lear's grave is eaten, a somber, ritualistic meal that feels more like a sacrament than a supper, and the hunger returns, a gnawing, constant presence. They now possess a sliver of miraculous hope, but their reality remains a landscape of starvation. The clan is divided. Kale and his followers see only a dangerous flirtation with dark spirits. They argue for moving on, for leaving the Valley of Ghosts and seeking new hunting grounds, or return to the old ways that they understand. Where hunters, Kale argues around the fire, his voice sharp with fear. We do not eat the dead's food, we do not play games with the earth. Mara, now Eleonora's fiercest disciple, counters him. Her grief has been forged into a new, unshakable faith. The old ways are what left Lear's belly empty, she says, her voice quiet but heavy with the weight of her loss. We have a choice. We can run from this new knowledge, or we can embrace it. We can trust our dead. She holds up the small leather pouch that now contains a portion of the seeds harvested from the grave. Lear gave us a gift. The hard choice falls upon the clan, a decision that will set the course of their entire future. It is a vote cast not with hands, but with feet. In the morning, Kale and nearly a third of the clan are gone. They have chosen the familiar path of the nomad, the known hardships of the wandering hunt. Those who remain are the desperate, the hopeful, and the faithful. They have chosen to gamble their existence on a miracle. Led by Mara and Lara, they begin the first act of deliberate agriculture. It is an act of profound faith, steeped in the language of ritual. They do not simply plant seeds, they are preparing a new body for the spirit of the grain. They choose a small, protected plot of land near the stream. They clear the rocks, an act of grooming. They loosen the soil with sharpened sticks, an act of tender care. It is a garden, but it is also a grave. The act of planting is a funeral rite. They bury a portion of their precious, life-giving seeds, an act of supreme altruism where the needs of the future demand a sacrifice from the present. They are willingly starving themselves a little more today, for the promise of a feast tomorrow. The waiting is the hardest part. The small, fenced-in plot of earth becomes the center of their world, a sacred, vulnerable space. It must be protected. A lone Strathiomemos, a fast, bird-like dinosaur, can strip their grave bare in minutes. The remaining hunters become not hunters but guardians. They stand watch in silent, exhausting vigils, their spears now tools to defend a patch of dirt. Days turn into weeks. The gnawing hunger deepens. Some begin to doubt, their eyes turning to the empty horizon where less people disappeared. Mara herself feels her faith waver in the cold, hungry nights. And then one morning, a child shouts. Small green shoots are pushing up through the dark soil. Life, a promise fulfilled. The dead are answering, they are feeding them back. This is not the invention of farming as a science. It is the birth of cultivation as an act of faith, a sacred partnership between the living and the dead. The small green shoots represent a revolution, not just in how these people find their food, but in how they see their place in the universe. They are no longer just wanderers, taking what the world offers. They are creators, partners with the earth, capable of summoning life from the soil through ritual and trust. This single, sacred garden is the first anchor, the first small step on the long road that will lead humanity from nomadic uncertainty to the foundations of civilization. The seeds from Leah's grave have grown into something far greater than grain. They have grown into a future where humanity begins to shape the world in its own image, not with the sharp edge of a stone, but with the patient, hopeful act of planting a seed and waiting for the miracle. This is the dawn of a new human spirit, the courage to give away your last meal in the belief that the earth and the spirits of those you have lost will not let you starve. And across the valley on a sun-baked rock, a man from Kale's clan watches the impossible green square, his own stomach aching with a hunger that is no longer just for food, but for faith.